Well, everyone, it's time for us to go and do a battery comparison between the iPhone 16e, the iPhone 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, and even have an iPhone 11 right here. I have no idea where to put this iPhone though, because there's not enough space. And what we're going to do is we're literally just going to have all these iPhones pretty much just sit up here, and we're going to go ahead and let them die out. Now, all these iPhones, whatever I do on one iPhone, I'm going to do on the exact other one. I have a timer down here to show you, and we'll pretty much check in every hour or so. All the applications are cleared out in the background. So as you can see, all the applications are cleared out even on my iPhone 11, and all their max brightnesses are to the top. So all the applications are cleared out. They're all on basically the most recent version of iOS that's available, and they're all on max brightness. So what we're going to want to do for the first hour is we're just going to go ahead and let these iPhones basically just chill out on their main display. So we're not going to do anything crazy. We're just going to leave them on their main display like this. We'll check back in about an hour, and we're going to see where these iPhones are at. I would imagine that within the next hour, these iPhones are probably going to end up, not dying. If I'm going to say maybe the 11 is going to die first, but the 16e is said to have the best battery life. So we'll come back in about an hour, and we're going to see where all these iPhones are at that time. Well, everyone, it's literally been 1 hour for me doing this comparison, as you can tell. And right now, my iPhone 16e is at 96%. My iPhone 16 is at 97%, so already I'm getting a bigger size or better battery life on the 16, which is kind of surprising. This one was supposed to be better. iPhone 15, 94%. iPhone 14, 92%. iPhone 13, 92%. iPhone 12, 88%. And the iPhone 11 at 85%. So already I'm kind of seeing something interesting. I was not expecting the iPhone 16e to be giving me better battery life from this particular situation. And you can see they're both in tie now. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go ahead and load up Temple Run 2 in the background. So they're going to be the same brightness, same everything. All we're going to do now is just load up Temple Run 2 in the background, let them die out from there, and we'll check back in about another hour and see where we're at. So it's been about another hour, and you can see I've been playing Temple Run 2 for the last hour or so. So now we're at the 2-hour mark. If I go and hop out of Temple Run 2 and inside of all these particular phones, you can see right here, if we start off with the iPhone 16e, once I'm on the front page of all these, you can see that my iPhone 16e is at 87%. My iPhone 16 right now is at 88%. The 15 is at 82%. The 14 is at 81%. The iPhone 13, 79%, 12, 70, and then the iPhone 11 is at 62%. Now, these two being the worst, nothing really interesting there. It's kind of what I would expect. But you can see as we get closer and closer to the top, you can see that the iPhone 16e is at 87%. My iPhone 16 is at 88%. Per Apple's own website, they did kind of state that the 16e was going to be giving you better battery life than the iPhone 16. By a little bit, it's not by much. So the fact that we're already kind of seeing better battery life on my iPhone 16 is actually kind of surprising, because the 16e does have a significantly bigger size battery than the iPhone 16. So that is kind of an interesting thing kind of going on in and of itself. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into Temple Run 2. I'm just going to let them die out from there. After that, I'm going to turn the flashlight on all those phones after the next hour, and that typically kind of demonstrates kind of random uses of these iPhones, and we see a lot of battery depleting going on there. So we'll check back in about another hour, and we'll see where we're at. So another hour has passed. So now we can kind of jump into it. Now it's still interesting, the iPhone 16e is still doing a little worse than the iPhone 16. So that's something that's very surprising. The iPhone 16e is at 78%, iPhone 16 79%, iPhone 15 70%, pretty big difference here, 14 69%, 13 65%, 12 50%, and the iPhone 11 at 38%. So once again, this is another very interesting thing kind of going on here. The 16 is doing the best, 16e is second to the best, and the 11 is doing the worst, and these iPhones kind of fit in between. I think the 12 is actually getting a little bit worse battery life now. It's kind of surprising on iOS 18. But what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and basically just load these phones up with Temple Run 2, and I'm going to turn the flashlight on all of them. So the flashlight at max brightness with Temple Run 2, and we'll check back in about another hour, and we'll see where we're at. So another hour has passed, and you can see we are at varying battery lives. So my iPhone 11, I think, is about to die very, very soon. So they're all having their flashlights on too, which is something that I found kind of kills the battery a little bit faster. So all the way at the end of my iPhone 11 is at 8%. My iPhone 12 is at 25%. My iPhone 13 is at 46%, 14 57%, the 15 52%, 16 is still at 65%, and the 16e is at 64%. So it's still very, very surprising to me that a phone like an iPhone 16e is still doing worse, because I would figure this phone would be doing better based on what Apple was telling us on their website. So we'll have to kind of check back in a little bit of time too and kind of see what we're kind of working with very soon. But I guess we'll just go back to another hour test. I'm pretty sure the iPhone 11 is about to die, and these are going to die probably subsequently. So we'll check back in about an hour and see where we're at. So the 5-hour mark is now here, and we got the iPhone 11 to actually die at the 4-hour and 15-minute mark. Now, hopping out of all these other iPhones, you can kind of see where we're basically at. Now, with the iPhone 16e, you can see that this iPhone is at 50%. The iPhone 16 is also at 50%. The iPhone 15 is at 34%. 14 is at 44%, which is surprising to me. The iPhone 13 is at 27%, and the 12 is at 2%, so the iPhone 12 is about to die. But you can see you're actually getting like way more battery life going from an iPhone 12 to one of these newer iPhones, which is actually pretty impressive. For some reason, this version of iOS 18, whatever this one's on, is just not doing the iPhone 12 that good at all, because that battery life is just doing terribly. You can see it's almost about to die. My iPhone 13 is doing pretty decent. I'm surprised that the 14 is doing better than the 15. You can see the flashlight is on here, and it's basically at the... You can see that the flashlight is on here, so that's actually pretty surprising. I have no idea what's going on here, but that is kind of crazy. I just turned it off by accident there. So what we'll do is we'll go and load these phones back up. We'll let them die out once again, and we'll come back in about an hour and see where they're at. So the iPhone 12 ended up dying at the 5-hour and 2-minute mark, literally like 10 seconds after I stopped filming the last video. But you can see right here, again, we're at varying battery lives. Again, the flashlights are on all of them. My iPhone, what is this? The iPhone 13 is at 6%. The iPhone 14 is at 28%. The iPhone 15 is at 17%. The iPhone 16 is at 35%, and the iPhone 16e is at 36%. So finally, we're starting to see a little bit more consistency with this battery life being better, but I'm actually quite surprised that the iPhone 15 is kind of doing this poorly in battery life. The 14 is doing really good. The 14 is doing much better than this phone, than the 13, so there's a big jump here. There's a big jump here in the negative way, and then there's a big jump back here again. So I don't know what it is with the iPhone 15 by having the flashlight on and the highest brightness. I think there's something there. I'm not really too sure. So we're kind of going to see what ends up happening here for a little bit of time as well. But from what I can see, it does look like the 16e is now going to be giving us better battery life finally. But the 15 is doing a really, really weird job. I'm not really too sure what's going on with this type of iPhone when it comes down to it. But we'll come back in about another hour and we'll see where we're at. So now we are at the 7-hour mark. And you can see my iPhone 15 ended up dying at the 6-hour and 55-minute mark, so right about an hour ago. So pretty insane. I'm also keeping track of all these times by just lapping them right here, so you can get an idea of how long they've died and how long they've lasted. Now hopping out of all these ones, you can kind of see where we're at. The iPhone 14 is still at 12%, the iPhone 16 is at 20%, and the iPhone 16e is at 21%. So these ones are still doing pretty good. You can see my iPhone 14 outlasted the 15, 13, 12, and 11. So I'm more surprised about this phone. These two are kind of going neck and neck. I can see how the 16e would give us better battery life. So we'll just kind of see what ends up happening. I would imagine in the next hour, the iPhone 14 might end up dying. Maybe the 16 will be here for 2 more hours, but we'll see what happens in the next hour. We're now at the 8-hour mark, and you can see my iPhone, these other iPhones ended up dying. The 13 is dead, the 14 is dead, and the 15 is dead. And you can see that the 15 ended up not lasting as long as the 14, which is pretty crazy. So let me go and hop out of these two. My iPhone 16e is at 8%, and my iPhone 16 is at 5%. So it's weird in the beginning with, but now you can tell that the iPhone 16e is actually outlasting the iPhone 16. So somehow along the way, the numbers ended up swaying towards the iPhone 16e. So that is something that's kind of interesting. I'm going to imagine in the next hour, the iPhone 16 is probably going to be dead, maybe within the next like 30, 45 minutes. So I'm sure this comparison is not going to be that much longer, and the anticipation is killing me. So I'm pretty sure the 16 is going to win, but we will check back in about another hour, and we'll basically see where we're at. So the comparison actually ended up dying a couple of hours ago, but essentially, or not hours ago, like a couple of minutes ago. But at around the 8 hour and 20 minute mark, that's when the iPhone 16 ended up dying. And it took a lap there, so 8 hour and 20 minutes. Then the iPhone 16e ended up dying at the 8 hour and 35 minute mark, which was about 14 minutes and 5 seconds above that one. So, realistically speaking, from the same exact test, the iPhone 16e lasted about 14 minutes longer than the iPhone 16. So, I will say, from a battery life comparison, going from an iPhone 11 to an iPhone 16e, you're getting like twice the amount of battery. Going from an iPhone 12 and above, you're also seeing pretty significant battery life, difference. But I'm gonna be honest, when you're kind of touching, the iPhone 16, you're really not gonna be seeing that much of a difference. I thought there was gonna be a bigger difference, it really wasn't. But for some reason, iOS 18, I've learned a couple of things. The 16e's battery life is better, but it's really not. I mean, it's like kind of close, but it's the best one for sure in the 6.1 inch side. I am very surprised about the iPhone 15. This battery life was way worse than I thought it was going to be. I'm very surprised about the iPhone 14's battery life because it lasted almost an hour, almost less than an hour less than the 16e. So you can take a look at these numbers right here, exactly the same things I've done with all of them. So in a day-to-day standpoint, the iPhone 16e is going to be giving you a better experience, but the 16 is very close to it. The 14 is fairly close to it. I'm surprised the 15 did this poorly. Hopefully Apple can go through and fix some of these problems that iOS 18 is causing on all of these iPhones, because before I was getting way better battery life on my 12, and I was getting better battery life on my 15, but I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens in the future. But in terms of that kind of covers up this whole entire comparison. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.